So let's talk about the concept of the rendering pipeline and basically how you go from an HTTP request to an actual rendered page in a little more detail. There's a great blog post by Emil Stenstrom, which we sort of adapted and add a lot of links to. I'm going to just summarize it at the high level, and you can click on the links to get more details. But at the beginning, you type in your URL. Steps 1 through 7 are, essentially how a network connection is actually established to that remote host given that URL. Once that connection is established, you send a specific HTTP request to the remote web server, and then it interprets that request. And then there's an important branch point in step 8. Basically, the web server, if it's serving up static content, that content is not a function of the specific request parameters other than the actual resource location. That is to say, it's only a function of really the URL. It's not a function of the time of day. It's not a function of your current login name and so on and so forth. It's a file that exists on the remote server and no computation is necessary. So static file serving is very easy. It just returns the original file that's there. And that was kind of the way the web was initially designed to operate. Dynamic, serving is less trivial. For a dynamic page, your username, your location, the time of day, and many other parameters can influence what page is returned. For example, 50 different people go to facebook.com when they're logged in, and they're going to see 50 different things. That's a great example of a dynamic page versus 50 people who go to an academic site and download a PDF are all going to get the same response back. That's a great example of a static site. So that's a distinction between static versus dynamic. As you can imagine, dynamic content is going to be much more complicated on the back end, and you can kind of click through these links to at least get a high-level overview. We'll do all of this, over the course of the class, but this gives you an overview at the beginning. Once the browser receives the response, whether it's static content or dynamic content, let's assume that right now it's not sending back a PDF, but it's sending back HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Then the browser will parse that HTML. They will build something called a document object model, which is like a hierarchical representation of the page. Then what they will do is, what browsers will do is they will do more requests if you've got external CSS and JavaScript content. The CSS and JavaScript will be parsed and executed, and then you've got a page on screen where you've got a DOM and you've got your CSS styles applied and the nodes have been moved around or styled again by JavaScript. And then every time you click a link, this entire process repeats again because an HTTP request is formulated and sent and so on and so forth.